So,
Love it.
again, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out of the program today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So, let's begin our journey with this. It's something that we don't talk about a whole lot, maybe because of the trauma of it. But 6 years ago, this pandemic was changing all of our lives, changing the world. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you work and live today?
Yeah, oh gosh, it was such a time for all of us, wasn't it? And particularly musicians and performers because all of our work was shut down. And I had a lot of friends who were absolutely devastated by that. Absolutely just devastated. Financially and emotionally because there's nothing more than they wanted to do. They didn't feel like themselves when they were on stage. It was different for me, Joe. It was really different. Had already been questioning what I was doing, if I wanted to keep doing it. I had this enormous, really big concert tour planned for the West Coast it was like mid-April 2020. And, I was going to see friends. It was music I knew really well. It was a big deal. I was excited about it. But when it got shut down, even before it got shut down, when I knew it was probably going to get shut down, I just felt this relief. And that's when I knew I was like, okay, it is time. It wasn't burnout. I wasn't like, oh my God, I just need to rest. It was just like, yeah, I just don't feel like doing that.
Yeah.
I don't feel like getting on a plane and being away from my family for 2 weeks. I don't feel like running around and worried about traffic. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I gave myself that sabbatical that I had been wanting that everybody told me I couldn't have, right? No, you can't
Right.
quit. You're a musician.
Uh-huh.
Musicians don't quit.
Yeah.
And once you reach a certain level, you just feel grateful and lucky that you get to do it, which I did. I just felt like there were other things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I found that I was really jealous of, say, my ballet dancer friends who were just expected to retire at a certain point and embark on a completely different career. Some of my dancer friends went on to open their own ballet schools and to teach or to stay involved in the company they were with in sort of a mentor teacher capacity. Some of them went to school, became nurses, became writers, publishers, editors. They did all sorts of things. And I was like, what would that be like for me? So I started a couple of online programs. So I kind of stayed in music, right? I started the first virtual classical music festival to happen online, the Virtual Summer Cello Festival, which is a huge success. Very proud that a lot of other festivals were modeled after it. And I worked with a lot of my colleagues on how they could create projects and just do something, right? The community needed things that had never existed before, and I just got so excited and lit up around the idea of creating them for myself, creating them for my students, creating them for the community around them, and helping my colleagues create them for themselves. And that just took me down a whole new path.
I remember during that time, I amped up my interviews more than I ever did before. And
Mhm.
I kept thinking during that time, when we come out of this, I was thinking there was going to be way more musicians that were going to just go off the radar. I mean, I'm talking like I thought Justin Bieber and big people were going to be like, what am I doing? They finally have this respite. They finally have this moment to exhale. And they're probably like, what is going on? You're running constantly. Yeah, the travel is a whole other thing. It's
Mhm.
like, but anyway, I mean, it did what it did to people in their own ways. And music's a big love. That's something that's hard to separate the egg from the yolk. I mean, when
Yeah.
you know
I think for me, I realized that I loved classical music and I loved performing and I loved and I don't mean performing like I loved playing the cello, which I did, so it's funny to say that, but that wasn't what it was for me.
yeah, yeah,
Right? So I have friends who like if they didn't have their violin in their hands on stage, like their violin was part of them.
yeah.
I never really felt like the cello was part of me. It was a great love of my life, but I could exist without it. But I loved the music. I loved being up in front of people. I loved communicating with the people and engaging with people. And when I realized that I could do all of that stuff without the cello, without the stuff that I was ready to move past, it's just been amazing. It's been
So
wonderful.
yeah, for sure. So let's get into the new twilight of your life here and hone in on what you do every day. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 13-year-olds. It's career day, and the kid
Mm,
in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer?
yeah. Well, I would say that I help people decide what they want their potential to be, figure out what they really want to do with their lives, all the cool projects that they have in mind, exactly who they want to be, and I help them figure out how to become that. And that's what I do. I have a podcast, so I speak to the masses like you do.
Yeah.
I wrote a book called Beyond Potential, a
Yes.
guide for creatives who want to reassess, redefine, and reignite their careers. And I work with people in groups and one-on-one. And so I help them sort of figure out their next project, their next pivot, how to get from where they are today to that person that they really want to be.
So when you were that age, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream gig?
Oh, I wanted to be a professional cellist.
Okay, so that was always it. So talk to me a little bit about the building blocks. Take me early on. There's all these conscious and subconscious things based
Mhm.
on, people that are in our lives, parents and all these other figures. What was really the pieces that became your elemental building blocks that have evolved between music and this life of helping people find their way?
Yeah, a lot of the time what we end up doing is so arbitrary, right? I mean, I chose the cello when I was 4.5 years old because I had a crush on a boy who played the cello. He was 8. He was an older man, but I knew, my 4.5-year-old brain knew, understood completely, Joe, that we could only get married if we played the same instrument.
Hmm.
And so cello it was, right? But I loved it. I was very good at it. And I also loved to write. I was a latchkey kid. I'm Gen X,
Yeah.
and I came home. I had an older brother, but he was into sports. He had a lot of friends. He was always out of the house. And so I would come home to this empty house, and yeah, I had to practice, but there wasn't much on TV then, as you remember, in
Yep.
the afternoon, right? And I would journal. I always had like a little diary, a little journal, and that writing kept myself company. And I have kept a journal. I think I've written and journaled every single day of my life. So it really made sense later on when I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be a writer. Like this is, I have mentioned I have a podcast. It started out in 2016 as a blog. And so I was just naturally expressing my thoughts. And, back then it was a blog about being a performer, being a professional musician. And but I think that I really loved thinking about the bigger picture, thinking about what was necessary in the community around me.
Yeah.
I had reached a point in my cello performing career where I was like, I mean, okay, people have tickets to come see this orchestra that I play in, and they show up every Saturday night, and maybe they have a good time. They're out with their friends, but I just play what's on the page, and is it really helping the world? And and I think in some ways it is, right? All music, all culture, the people who, they just need that moment with their friends, just sitting in a hall listening to great music. Yes, it's worth a lot. But for me, I felt called to do other things. And I had from a young age, I was that entrepreneurial, annoying friend who, like, my friends would be like, hey, let's hang out. And I'd be like, yeah, let's make friendship bracelets and then sell them,
Yeah. Yep.
right? There was one summer I wanted to go to a little cello camp that came up. It was like in Indiana, right? So it was a drive away from my home in Chicago, and it cost some money. And my parents, who were very supportive, and they paid for my lessons, paid for a lot of things. This was kind of a last minute thing. And they're like, we just haven't budgeted for it. We just don't have the money. And I couldn't do it. All my friends were doing it. My parents were like, no, you're doing a lot of other things, but we can't do this one. You can't do everything. And I was so mad that I was like, okay, you know what? If they can't make enough money for me, I'll make my own. And I started a camp in my backyard for all of the neighborhood kids, of which there were a lot. It was called Story Time and Puppet Time, and I would choose books, children's books, and I would figure out how to make some sort of simple puppet, like using brown sandwich bags and, lunch sacks and lanyards and all of that stuff. And we would just sit there, and the parents were like, "Yeah, take my money, take all three of my children for 2 hours, three
Yep.
days a week."
Yep.
I mean, I made bank.
Wow.
I was 12.
Wow.
I was 12 years old.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So I think there's just this weird part of my brain that loves to combine sort of big picture community cultural things and entrepreneurship and how can I make this happen? Maybe a little naivete that, I don't really realize that things might be harder than I think, and I just kind of make them happen. Kind of make them
You,
happen.
you know what's interesting? I remember interviewing a child prodigy here in Kansas City that's a blues musician. And I got the feeling that it's kind of like the child actors and actresses. You've been doing the cello for so long. It's almost as though it becomes a part of your DNA, but it's
Mhm.
like, what else is out there? What other choices do I have? And I always get that sense from the prodigies, the young ones that start so early on an instrument. It's like, no, 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 no. This can't be. What if I want to do this? Because
Mhm.
it's almost like you want to break out of that choice. I almost feel like that with a Michael Jackson, so to speak. Like, it's not
Sure.
like he wasn't designed to do that, but what if he wanted to do something else? What if there's like, with what you're saying, what if there's another avenue and and I can do something else that might be more beneficial or self-edifying?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember in the fall of 2019, I felt so this is pre-pandemic. I already at that point, I joined a coaching program for musicians and creatives. Worked with this woman, brilliant woman named Jennifer Rosenfeld. She was my very first coach, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea. I just knew that I wanted to find something. It's like when you're searching for a word and it's on the tip of your tongue
Yeah,
and you know it, but you just can't pull it up.
yeah,
That's how I felt about what I wanted to do. It was on the tip of my tongue. I just couldn't put my finger on it.
yeah.
And then we were a month into coaching and COVID hit. And so
Yeah.
like we all had to just kind of figure everybody pivoted from what they like all the people in the group who had set projects that were live and in person. They all had to pivot. I came up with my ideas and it all came from there. And I say that just for anybody listening who's like, yeah, I want to do something different, but I'm not sure what that something is.
Uh-huh.
Just give yourself permission to pursue the blank page
Yeah.
and take faith in the fact that you will figure it out. That
So
idea that's on the tip of your tongue, you'll get clarity around it.
you certainly will. Let me ask you this. Who's been that inspirational force in your life that's allowed you to navigate from music to what you're doing today, everything in between? Who's been that heroic force?
You know, it's interesting. Um, Michael Tilson Thomas, who passed away Wednesday night, 2 days ago. And he was the founder of the New World Symphony, of which I was a fellow, and he was an enormous mentor to me. And it's interesting because he was a musician, right? He was a pianist, he was a conductor, he was a composer. I was in his orchestral academy, but we had became very close. And one morning we would sit there and have coffee before rehearsal, and I confided in him that I had come to the realization that I didn't want to have an orchestral career, which was what this academy was training us to do. And I said, this is not the career I want. I wanted to play more solo and chamber music. And I thought he was going to say, okay, great. Well, you should move along and make room for somebody who wants this. And he said, great. You're not going anywhere. I'm going to help you find opportunities. Just follow that. Follow whatever ideas you have. And the fact that he saw a problem, he saw that there was this gap, that there was such amazing training up through the undergrad and graduate level. And then young musicians just sort of had to bide their time and take auditions, and there wasn't anything for them to do. They, freelance here and there. So he started this enormous academy in Miami Beach. He had this wild idea, and everybody said, "You want to do what? That's insane. Nothing like that has ever existed." And just by seeing this need and thinking, you know what, if I gather the right people around me, my excitement, my passion, my talents, my experiences can help make this happen and make it a reality. And so I have taken that to heart my whole life, inside of music and outside of music. And just that idea of seeing what is needed in the community and using my talents to build something helpful and leave the world a better place, as they say.
So how did you end up in Bermuda?
I met another boy. I make a lot of decisions in my life, but this one I did marry. Yeah, we just met by chance, and I was living in Boston and I was concertizing, right? So I just needed a place to practice and an airport. And he lived in Bermuda. He sails. He's a physics and oceanography professor. And I just said, Bermuda is such a beautiful place. At first, when we were dating, I thought, well, he's an academic, he's an intellectual, he's a scientist. Of course, he's going to move to Boston, which is a serious place where
Uh-huh.
serious people live. Serious people don't live in Bermuda. And, after I got to spend a lot of time here, and I realized what a magical place it was and that this was ideal. It allowed me to step away, to force me to step away from some of the things that I was just doing because out of habit,
Mhm.
certain jobs that I had out of habit. And coming here, it forced me to just say, okay, here's what I want to do. I have the space to think, space to do it, fresh start a little bit. I don't think it was necessary, but it didn't hurt. It didn't
Yeah.
hurt. Yeah,
So it seems like the boys have led you to some good things
I
between
guess
Bermuda
so.
and the
Yeah.
instrument. So let me ask you this. What is the energy for you every day to wake up to do all of this at a high level? Because when you get into coaching, you got to get into people's worlds. It can get dark and murky. So you got to protect yourself. You got to take care of your soul, and you got to do
Mhm.
things at a high power. What is that for you every day?
I just love it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I get so excited every morning when I wake up. I look at my clock and I'm like, is it 5:45 yet? Right? I
Yeah.
just cannot wait to get up. And I don't know what it is. I mean, as a coach, it is heavy at times. It takes so much concentration, right? Because you are just so absorbed listening to a level that I have never listened to people before in my life. And you're figuring out what the next best question is for them to unlock things for them. I need breaks after every client session. Um, and then really, I mean, I consider myself an empathetic person, but I try really hard not to get super attached to their emotions,
Yeah.
right? I'm there as a resource, I'm there as a tool, a sounding board, a mirror, and then I have to let go a little
Yeah.
bit and keep that separation.
So let's get into the hallmark, the highlight of both of these careers that you've had between coaching and music. What was the one of the most magical performances that you were ever a part of? That stage, that night, that moment. And then what was the client that you've had that maybe was a breakthrough or confirmed that you made the right choice to coach, or it was just a stellar example of doing what you wanted to do?
Mm.
What are the stories that would juxtapose the right and left brain versions of your reality?
Wow, I love that question so much. So for the performance, or what the question makes me think of, because there are just a lot of incredible performances from, playing in the great halls of Europe to playing with Jay-Z and Mary J. Blige and like everything in between, right? But there was one performance where I had won this big competition and I was going to play a concerto. And I had beat out a lot of people that I thought were better than me, that everybody around us kind of thought of as being the better player. I mean, everybody was at a high level, but I was surprised I won, and I think some other people were surprised I won too. So now here I am going out to play this performance, and I had worked really hard. And in that moment, I just decided that I could lean on that work. I could lean on the skills that I knew deep down that I had, on that potential that I knew I had to succeed. And I just went out there and I gave it everything I had. And it was an incredible experience. Coming away, just saying, like, it wasn't absolutely perfect. No live performance is. But I remember thinking that, okay, I trusted myself and I didn't hold back and I gave it all I could. And then in terms of the coaching work, I'm thinking of one client in particular who, I mean, he was so great. I loved working with him. He was a kind of person who would always push back. And he made me really work in every session. And after a few sessions, I was about to log on to work with him, and I was like, oh, God, this is going to be hard. And I was kind of dreading it. And I stopped myself, and it was such a similar moment to that performance of like, no, you know what? I have the skills I need to help this person. And I'm just going to go in there and give it everything I have and be 100% myself as a coach and help him.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the best coaching sessions I've ever given. It was a huge breakthrough session for him. And the lesson in both is work hard to build your skills and then learn how to trust it and
Yeah.
just show up, show up.
I love it. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you. You
Hmm.
walk into a room right now, current day, who you are, and you go in and there's a film projector and you hit play and the 60-second highlight reel of your life comes up. Would
Yeah.
that young version of you believe that your life turned out this way?
Yes and no. I'm trying to think, we as humans evolve so much
Yeah.
as we go through life. And that 18-year-old version of me just wanted to be a professional cellist, right? That 18-year-old Kate was heading off to the New England Conservatory of Music, off to new adventures. She was really ready to make it happen. So I think that if 50-year-old Kate showed her the highlight reel of like, and then eventually you stop, like you do all these amazing things, you have this great career, and then in your 40s you stop and you write a book and you coach people and you do these interesting things and you become a conductor of all things. Like I conduct an orchestra here. I think she'd be confused.
Yeah.
I think 18-year-old Kate just wanted to be a cellist and she might say like, "Gosh, why did you quit? You were so good."
Yeah.
Which is what everybody around me was saying when I was in my 40s, right? Why would you quit? You're so good, which is very flattering, of course, to hear, but not what you want to hear when you're ready to make a pivot. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting question. I think that I am incredibly proud now of everything that I'm doing. And that's what the book talks about. The book starts with this idea that if you were to die and go to heaven, and instead of meeting St. Peter at the pearly gates, you meet the version of yourself that did all of the things you truly wanted to do. How different would that person be from you?
Wow.
Right? Did that person run the marathon that you've been like in the back of your mind, like, yeah, someday I'll run a marathon, like, and then you meet them. It's you, same age, same day, but they ran it. They did it. They've got the medal around their neck or whatever it is. Like they wrote the book. They moved wherever. That's what I'm talking about. And I think that that changes as we move through life. That can evolve. That idea can evolve. But the idea of the book is to help you get closer and closer and closer to that version of you, to close the gap between where you are now and where you want to be.
What about you? Are those versions similar that you would run into?
Getting more and more every day.
Yeah.
One of the things that I thought about, because the first time I heard that idea, the concept, stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, wow. And one of the first things that came to my mind was their her teeth were straight. Now, I don't have terrible teeth, but I have one that's like a little bit crooked, and then in photos, it casts a shadow. So it looks in photos, it looks much worse than it was. And when I imagine this like true version of myself, like that version of Kate had just she got Invisalign. It was
Yeah.
no big deal.
Yeah.
Her tooth is straight. And those are the types of things of like, gosh, really wouldn't be that hard to do that thing. I'm in the habit of not doing it.
Yeah. True.
So the book really gets you unstuck. So yeah, writing it and coaching my clients on it and giving workshops on it and showing up to book groups to talk about it, it keeps it top of mind for me too, right?
Yeah.
I have to walk the talk. So yeah, I'm constantly thinking like, what would that version of Kate do in this
Yeah.
situation?
So let's get to the true crossroads of your soul here. I'm going to
Oh,
ask you.
geez. Wow. Okay.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that listens to your podcast, get your book, everyone that knows you in varying capacities, but you run the show. What is your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I am someone who is moving through this world who has a unique set of skills, as everyone does, right? Everyone has their unique sort of basket of different skills. And I'm someone who tries to put those skills to good use together. I'm someone who's just figuring it out, just like everybody else, and who is willing to share what has worked and what hasn't worked and to help people figure that out for themselves. So, short answer, just someone who's trying.
Yeah, I get it. So
Yeah,
if anybody wants more, the podcast is Tales from the Lane. The book is Beyond Potential. If anybody wants to hire you, they need this help. They want to reach out. They're ready. Where do they go for all of it?
absolutely. Well, you can go to my website and get more information on everything that I do, but reach out to me on Instagram at Kayaian. That's Kayaian. Find me on Instagram and let's chat in the DMs. We'll get you sorted.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Kate, so great to meet you. Thank you
You
so much for the
too.
story. This has been wonderful.
It's been great, Joe. Thanks so much.
You bet.